What do you think? You think they stand a chance? Well, you're on their side, aren't you? Who are you betting on,
Magic mirror on the wall. Who is the fairest one of all?
Look at these lies.
One shall stand, one shall fall.
Even if one of them survives,
the only way to stop him is to make another movie.
Welcome to the Celluloid Mirror. I am one of your hosts, Sean Mannion.
And I am your other host, Nicole Solomon. On the Celluloid Mirror, we take two films and look at what they reflect about each other, the audience, and our culture at large.
In this episode, we're going to be discussing James Gunn's Superman and Francis Ford Coppola's The Godfather.
We will start by giving a brief synopsis of each film and then discuss our responses to the films and what the films say about each other. And then we will wrap up with a bit about the critical responses to all of the films. Fair warning, if you have not seen one or both of the films we're discussing today, there will be spoilers. And I know they're both very recent. So sorry about that.
Hey, I put that in for you. I put that in for you because you're mad about spoilers.
I'm
and
mad
I was like,
about
you know what?
spoilers.
We do need to highlight that Superman did only come out like a month and a half ago or something like that. And according to a certain community, it flopped so big that who saw it? Like, who knows? I think we may have been the only people who see it the way certain people talk about the movie.
Wow, it's a good thing then that I both saw it in the theater and then paid like $15 to rent it to watch it again, because apparently that's the only money it made other than what they got off you.
It's like James Gunn owes you a candy or something. I don't know.
Edible arrangement. He must be so grateful. It must be really hard to be him.
It must be. Who knows? So how are you doing? How are we doing? Nicole, how are we doing?
We're in hell, Sean. We live in hell. Barry Weiss is head of content at CBS now. Why not?
CBS?
Some Trump toady is like their head of not being biased. It's awesome.
Oh, it's amazing.
You know what? It is
amazing.
though amazing because I feel like so much of my life has been spent with people saying stuff's Orwellian that's not, and they specifically mean like 1984 Orwellian usually.
Yeah.
And this is so much every day. And so finally, I don't have to have it's not Orwellian. It is Orwellian.
No, that's been a perpetual pet peeve of mine. The thing that I would hate would be when people would talk about the newspeak, and they'd be talking about like
PC.
Like all the all these new words we have to use for
language never evolved.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
wrote a book.
This is newspeak, and I'm like, but I feel like nobody's talking about that in regards to the way people self-censor on social media, because that's newspeak. That's those are that I mean, we're doing it to ourselves, but
that's part of the point.
Yeah.
And you know what? Some of us did talk about that. Some of us have been talking about that because some of us are like, damn, so I'm trying to promote my stuff on TikTok and I literally can't say what my stuff is, even though I'm not doing anything like illegal or explicit.
Supposedly.
Still, just certain words you just can't use. That's a problem. And it's not just TikTok anymore. Mark Zuckerberg's like, give me some of that censorship. Like, my algorithm sucks, and so do I. But like, I can make it so people will be self-censoring on my platforms too, and they do.
But other than that, we watched some movies.
We did watch some movies.
And The Godfather. What are these movies about? Let's touch on that for anybody who hasn't seen them. Again, spoilers that spoil things. Looked up on IMDb the synopsis for these films, and Superman says that Superman must reconcile his alien Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing as reporter Clark Kent. As the embodiment of truth, justice, and the human way, he soon finds himself in a world that views these as old-fashioned.
Well, the synopsis for The Godfather, a much longer movie, or a somewhat longer movie, is actually much shorter, which is: the aging patriarch of an organized crime dynasty transfers control of his clandestine empire. Clandestine.
I think it's clandestine. I think you can do all of them. I think it's all on it. All correct.
Clandestine is the way I wanted to pronounce that.
Then go for it.
His clandestine empire to his reluctant son.
So, what do we think of these movies? What do you think of these movies, Nicole?
I think they're both good movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I rewatched Superman last night. I think it's good. There's some stuff in it that I think is really, really good. Godfather's a classic for a reason. It's very enjoyable. There's some stuff about it I find unintentionally hilarious, but it's wonderful filmmaking. Cameras where it's supposed to be. A lot of thought put into things like, when do we see someone's face for the first time?
Yeah.
How do we reveal that? Just some nice editing. Like, it's, that's classic for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, as you say.
And it was, I'd seen, these are both films, I guess, that I've seen twice. I'd actually only seen The Godfather once. I saw it like in the 2000s with my friend Tara, who really liked the Godfather trilogy, and so we watched them. And that was the first time I'd seen them, and this is only the second time I've seen the first one. I am gonna rewatch the second one also, though. It got me excited enough to do that. Third, I don't know about that, but the second one I will be rewatching.
Yeah, I'm similar. I really like Superman. And I very much like The Godfather. I've seen it probably. This might be my fourth or fifth time watching it. I saw it when I was younger, when I was a teenager in the 90s. I know that because I remember watching it on the VHS. That there was a two-tape VHS. Yeah. I remember watching it then. Oh, I did. I'm going to count that I watched one time. A cable network did this thing where I think it was originally, I think this was a broadcast thing that happened back in the 70s or the 80s, but there's a version where 2 and the original are in chronological order.
Yeah, it's on Letterboxd. It's called like The Godfather Legacy or something like that. Or like The Godfather Saga. Something
like that. And I watched that back in like the early 2000s, and then I've watched it at least once since then, and then for this. I like it. I think it's a good movie. I don't know if we've talked about on this, but we've talked about, I'm not generally a fan of most mob movies. I think that like this is a good movie, not because it's a mob movie, but because it's an immigrant story, which is a lot of what we're going to talk about, I think. And I like certain other ones. They're just really well made movies. But like a lot of mob things are just kind of boring references to The Godfather, except for, there's older classic, like I guess since The Godfather, older classic things, like there's some of those that I find enjoyable where they have got a little flavor of this of mob or crime stuff to it. But otherwise, I don't love it as a genre.
I hate that crime is a genre. Can we just say I hate it so much? It doesn't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's crime in the movie. Like, horror movies sometimes will be called crime, and it's like, well, yes,
yeah,
Jigsaw was committing crimes.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of those that I enjoy. A lot of them are older ones, like Key Largo or White Heat or something like that. But
yeah, I mean, I like a lot of the kind of more noir-y stuff that brings that has mob elements, and I like I like Goodfellas. I like
Goodfellas is great. Goodfellas is
There's a few mob movies that I think are great, but yeah, they're mostly just being derivative of other mob movies, and they're also usually really glamorizing organized crime and violence without doing any of the interesting stuff.
Yeah.
That some of the better movies that arguably also glamorize, because if you make a movie about something, you're usually, to some degree at least, going to be glamorizing it.
Yeah.
But most of these do nothing else.
Exactly.
For me.
And that's a lot of my feeling on it. And yeah, and like I said, I love Superman. Whoops. I love Superman in general. I think we talked about that when we did our painful Justice League and Schindler's List movie.
This is the second Superman movie we've talked about in a way.
In a way, for sure. I'm sure that will come up more. But no, this is, for me, this is the kind of Superman movie I love, and I've got a strong relationship to that character personally. But before we get into talking more about these, and before we get into talking about the very, very important connections between these films, Nicole, do you know what time it is?
6:13 p.m.
I believe the correct answer is it's time for a word from our sponsor.
Oh, we got a sponsor.
We have a very special sponsor. There's a link in the show doc for you. Let me know when you see it and are ready to share with the fine audience of whoever's there. Are you ready?
Oh, I'm ready. Should I say the sponsor?
Yeah, please do.
Today's show is being brought to you by our kind friends at Ultra Fail Eyelash Supplements.
Correct.
I did it.
You did it.
I did it.
Well, what are Ultra Fail Eyelash Supplements, Nicole?
I mean, look, this is how it is. You know, or you should know, that 99% or more of the beauty supplements on the market that used to be sold to you by Gwyneth Paltrow, but apparently Goop is pulling back on the supplement business and selling more sweaters and crap like that. Oh. You might want to think about that, because it might have something to do with the fact that if you're taking supplements for your eyelashes or any number of other things that you can buy in a store, they're not going to work.
Oh. Well, where should I get those supplements?
Well, I think what you should do is well, it depends what you want. Like, do you want to build muscle? Do you want to start emitting a weird smell? Do you want all of your eyebrows to fall out? Or do you want something great to happen with your eyelashes?
I think I want something great to happen with my eyelashes. I think that's really what I need.
I've got the product for you then. It's Ultra Fail Eyelash Supplements. There are so many different colors of pills in these bottles, and the great thing about them is it's a mix of different vital nutrients and supplements and you can see it in the picture. Can they see the picture?
Yes, they can see the picture.
You can see in the picture if you're not listening at home. If you're seeing us, if you're seeing the ultra fail eyelash supplements, this beautiful photograph that I guess Sean took to capture the exact look of the product. It's really beautiful product photography. Point being, you can see that there's all different kind of pills in this bottle, because what you get with ultra fail eyelash supplements is you get to be a part of scientific history. You get to be a part of making this product by trying all the different pills in the bottle. Some of them you're going to like, some of them you're going to like a little less. Let us know what you think.
Absolutely.
And we might be able to get you more of whichever ones you liked. You will be an important part of the decision-making process of what even constitutes an ultra fail eyelash supplement, because right now what it is just the odds and ends of all of the miscellaneous pills that we have found in different medicine cabinets when someone has been foolish enough to invite us into their homes, maybe that we have pilfered from connections who work at pharmacies. But we're not great at this, so we don't have that much of any one kind of pill. And so we figured the best and fairest way to handle this is just to throw them all in a bucket, and we just scoop out, roughly the same weight of pills for whatever it says on the bottle. And you get to try so many different things.
And where can I get
what
these?
other supplement gives you that?
It's a fair point.
And look, it says ultra fail right there on it. So we're not saying that it's actually going to do anything to your eyelashes, but we are saying it might.
It might.
And we're not saying that if it does something to your eyelashes, you're going to like it. That's why it's called ultra fail eyelash supplements. However, if there are some pills in these bottles that might better be labeled ultra success eyelash supplements, that's also useful information for us to have. So if something awesome happens to your eyelashes, if you could just let us know what you took that did that, we will send you not one, but 2 free bottles of ultra fail eyelash supplements for you to take or give to a friend or an enemy or sell on the black market. Some of it probably is very valuable on the black market. We don't care, because with ultra fail eyelash supplements, you're in the driver's seat.
And where can they drive to get the ultra fail eyelash supplements?
Well, you're just going to want to drive right on down to Route 13 next to Bennigan's to pick up ultra fail eyelash supplements. Available at a rickety cart with one wheel and a sign that says it's for something else near you. But it is on Route 13 next to Bennigan's.
Okay. That's a handy location, prime location. All right. Well, and that was a word from our sponsor. Oh.
That was today's sponsor.
So
the more you know.
Let's talk about what these films have to do with each other. I think I talked about it a little bit a moment ago. What did you say?
Tell us more, Sean.
Well, I think a lot of people have talked about how this new Superman movie and how it relates to immigration. A lot of people like to talk about Superman and immigration in the current state of what our country is doing. Doing okay?
No, but I'm not choking anymore.
Okay, well, that's important. So anyway, Superman is an immigrant story. He comes to Earth as a child. He's adopted by this couple, he's not even from the same planet, and he settles in. And I think more so than that with both of these films, because The Godfather is also, I think, one of the things for me that makes The Godfather stand out as a film in the crime genre, in the mob genre, is that it is more so a film about immigrants, Italian immigrants in America. And I think that was what I recognized watching it this time for the show is the movie starts with a speech that's about that. That's about this, the Undertaker, and he's talking about how his daughter was harmed by these boys, and he repeatedly says they came to America and they wanted to be Americans, so they wanted to live the American way and all of this. And then when they wanted to trust what the American system was, and then the American system failed them, and that's why he's coming to Vito Corleone at the beginning of the movie to ask for him to do something about it. And it's about how Italian Americans weren't considered a part of sort of the normal American society, the normal white. They weren't white yet, or maybe they were, but they weren't the good whites yet. In this context of the late 40s, and through the 50s, is just sort of, as immigrants, they were still other. And I think that persists through the film. I think that's a lot of Michael's struggle. It's a struggle of assimilation. He does not want to be, and his family doesn't want him to be, his dad doesn't want him to be a part of what the family does. He went to war for the country, and he wants to be, he's like, I'm going to be a good American. I got this nice girl from, where's she from? New Hampshire or Connecticut? I can't remember where she is.
I mean, something like that.
Yeah.
Waspy, like.
He's got a nice waspy girlfriend, and ultimately it comes through that, like, he can't do that. He has to be a part of what the family's business is. He kind of gets drawn into it. He chooses to do it as well. They for a while they try to dissuade him from getting involved, but everybody else, his brother and everybody, until he insists on it. But there's that side of it, and then again, the Superman is immigrant story. This version of Superman, and one of the reasons two reasons I wanted to talk about this version. One, it's because this is the one that just came out, and two is because this one deals so much more with the same kind of themes of assimilation and immigration, because of the somewhat controversial in comic book nerd spaces element of the plot, where there's the message from his parents is revealed that they wanted him to not just show up and help people on Earth. They were like, dominate the planet, essentially, was what the message they left him was. And so he has to struggle with, I thought they wanted me to be this kind of person, and so that's how I define myself. But now I learn that actually my heritage is this other thing. And I think that there's some struggle with the character with that in this version of the film, with this version of the character, that I thought was very relevant to what happened with The Godfather. The 1978 Superman film has a lot of other connections to The Godfather, both having Marlon Brando as Jor-El, and also Godfather author Mario Puzo wrote the screenplay for the 1978 Superman movie. So those are connections as I saw them in here. What do you think about the connections between these films, Nicole?
I mean, I think in addition to it being about themes of assimilation and deciding whether to break from the family business of sorts or, fold yourself back into it, which is, I mean, to be fair, Superman never is like, maybe I should dominate the humans. That's not the tension in the Superman movie. He never considers it. He wouldn't consider it. That's not who he is. But the people around him become very afraid and suspicious in a way that I don't want to draw too strong of a parallel here, but there are some parallels to bigotry and xenophobia that come up around, people realizing that Superman's parents had, some ideas that aren't helpful to them, despite the fact that they have never once seen Superman behave in any way whatsoever that had to do with wanting to dominate people. He has done nothing but help people and squirrels and probably other animals.
Yeah.
But still there's this like, oh, but maybe he's got a secret agenda, which I think if you're a part of any group that gets accused of that, that's gonna resonate a bit. And I think in The Godfather, we're seeing, like, it's an immigrant story, it's a family story, it's a whiteness in progress story, right? Like, because I know more about the history of like Irish people actually and Jews in relation to whiteness, and how people in those groups who are white, at least by other US standards, went from being a racialized other that was outside of whiteness to being a part of whiteness. And that definitely happened with Italians in general as well. And the time, like you said, the time period we're seeing here, though, that stuff is like very unstable. And part of what we're seeing that's so tragic about it to me is Michael is trying to be American, right? He doesn't just leave the family business. He goes and joins the army. Like, he goes and fights in a war for the United States. And, if you study your world history and you think about like where Italy and the United States were in these conflicts, there's a lot going on that the movie doesn't have any like dialogue pointing to. But if you have like the most basic context, you can see there's a lot going on here, right? And there's also something symbolic there, in a sense of like, he's all in, he's going to be the patriotic guy, and he's going to fight for the United States. But also, as I was talking to my partner, other Sean, about when we watched it, like, he supposedly hasn't been working for his dad, right? He's not like going and
he went to college.
He went to college, and then he joined the military. But you'll notice the first time we see him handle a gun, he feels very comfortable with it. Because he was in the fucking military. Because a lot of the skill sets translate back and forth.
Yeah.
Between those two things. And so for me watching it, and I think Pauline Kael speaks to this a bit in her review that I think we're going to talk about later as well, that film to me is not subtly, but subtle by today's standards, I guess, drawing parallels between the organizations of organized crime and the organizations of government and military and other systems. And I think very much setting up organized crime as not like, this violent aberration from the American dream or something, but basically the closest thing to the quote unquote American dream that Italian immigrants had access to.
Yeah. In
a lot of respects, and I think it kind of shows how even Michael, who was the good one, who did all the, it's not, I don't think the film is like pathologizing his family more so than the broader society, right? Yeah. Like, I don't think they're like, people go and fight in the army and come out just fine, But if you join the mafia, well, then you like. I think the film's about what are the connections between these things. Maybe these things aren't so different.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does have a little bit to do with the violence changes them, and I think the film does I mean, at one point, Sonny is talking about how it's different because it's close, which I think is a little bit of an assumption about the GIs during World War II weren't necessarily
Especially
that far
back
away.
then.
Yeah, I did want to point out. I think they do flirt a little bit with showing some of that. The Italians, the Americans, when he's in Italy, and that one guy who's leading him around is like, "Hey, American GIs," and they're because there are still American that part is in the late. I want to say that's 47.
I was confused about what year it was.
There's a lot of time jumps in the movie.
And they don't tell you.
No.
Which is fine with me. It's not a complaint. But I was like, I don't know what year it is.
I think it's also good because I think that as far as the time jumps, because it's placed in a time and a place. There's a it's post World War II, it's that, but it's not trying to narrow it there. So I think that keeps it more. I think that's one of the ways that the movie stays more relatable, as far as maybe not relatable, but more relevant, I guess, as far as being kind of a broader immigrant story. Is that yes, this takes place during a specific time, but we're not going to just say it's 1947, or we're not going to just say it's 19. I think the film ends closer to 1952 or something like that. Because it goes into the 50s by the end of it.
It's about 10 years, right? It's about a 10-year span?
I think it's something like that. It's pretty close to. And I think that there is a lot of it where it's exploring. Yeah, it's exploring, like I was saying, it's exploring kind of how the violence impacts them through Michael, specifically, because he does change as a character through it. It's whether he's on the receiving end of the violence when that police chief or police captain, whatever he is, smacks him around, and he's like, oh, well, now I'm going to, jump in and be the hothead, through actually being hands-on with it, through having to sort of give the orders on certain things. By the end of it, he's a very, very different character than, or maybe not the different character, but he's changed in that final scene versus when we first meet him at the wedding.
Well, he's replaced his dad.
Yes.
At the end, he's the opening and closing scenes are in the same room, and it's the opening scene is setting up his dad, and then the closing scene is showing that he has become his dad, and even sounds like his dad, he's talking different.
Yeah.
There's a physical transformation where he looks more like him.
Yeah.
And part of it is he's older, part of it is he's doing a thing with his mouth, but he's the new Godfather.
Yeah. And
which is, even though the movie starts with him telling Diane Keaton very explicitly, here's a bunch of terrible shit about my family, let me be very clear, that's my family, not me.
Yeah.
I have taken myself away. I am a GI, I have nothing to do with any of this. And he just jumps in.
Yeah.
I felt bad for Diane Keaton's character, man. I felt real bad for her character. Even though she, at the very end, there's this part at the very end where basically Diane Keaton, to remind people who've seen it, if they don't remember, if you haven't seen it, she basically asks Michael if he was involved in some violence. And she's like, and he's like, you can't ask me about my business. Then he's like, okay, you can ask me this one time. You can ask me this one time. And she's like, were you involved in this? And he's like, no.
No.
And
Yeah.
she accepts it. Even though she really has no good reason to, she accepts it. She wants to so bad. She goes to go get a drink, and it's only then when a bunch of other dudes come in, start talking about it, making it very clear that Michael just lied to her face. And then one of them shuts the door in her face.
Yeah.
And that's like the end of the movie, is in her face of just realizing that her husband has lied to her. And not only that, but it's like she only needed the faintest little fig leaf of plausible deniability, and she would have clung to it. And she can't even have that. Like, even that gets ripped away from her. And
Yeah.
it's sad business. It's sad business.
Yeah, her character.
Not like Superman and Lois Lane. Those kids seem like
It's very different.
very different.
And to talk about how this Superman kind of reflects some of that, like I think one of the ways that it's reflecting it is, like he doesn't struggle with whether or not he should do what his family had said. He struggles with what that means about who he is, which I found interesting. And you know, in terms of Superman at the movies, this is a departure from other ways that his family has been depicted, but not for comic book fans. Like it is somewhat related to, it's not the same, but it's somewhat related to how his family was depicted in the 80s in the books when they rebooted him. They were different in that case. It was a very sterile, like science-oriented thing where people didn't even touch each other, and it was sort of an interesting concept at the time, but it was much less of the sort of warm and fuzzy that even the Brando version had. That kind of struggle with, like, who am I? Like, I thought I was these people, I thought because I came from here, I was these people. And then, he takes the path that's, I would say, is somewhat the opposite of Michael. He says that, no, I'm going to embrace assimilation in this way, even when people were not necessarily going to, for a bit, they weren't going to let him, right? The xenophobia you're talking about, I think there's probably something to be said about, in that moment where that message comes through and everybody sees it, he goes from being the good immigrant, I think that's the phrase people use, right? There's that concept of like, oh, we're the good immigrants, and that, those are the bad ones, or something like that, who are doing it the wrong way. He went from that in people's eyes to being the bad immigrant, or the dangerous immigrant. And for him in the movie, that made it. He was already kind of in that place because of how we start the movie, where he had decided to take action that was unapproved by the government, and was and because of his attempts at assimilation already was being considered as being representative of them, and he was already, like, they were already looking at him sideways over his what's the word I'm looking for? Infiltration is not it. Inserting himself, I guess, into the conflict between Baravia and I'm forgetting the name of the other country.
Jarapur.
Yeah.
I think. Could be mispronouncing.
Yeah.
This made-up country.
Yeah. And so he inserts himself into that, and so he's already like he went from being already like, oh, you're the, in the government's eyes, oh, you're a good immigrant, to, oh, you're somebody we have to watch, and then this other thing happens, and then the public turns against him. But instead of sort of, in parallel to Michael, like that's kind of similar. He's faced with a similar sort of conundrum, in that, Michael has to deal with his father being attacked and being in the hospital, and Superman has to deal with his cousin's dog being kidnapped. In this version of Superman, the Vito Corleone character is Crypto, the Superdog. So as far as the roles that they play in the film. But I think that, Superman as a character comes up a lot in, like, I see people, especially like in nerd circles, talking about him a lot when it comes to the immigrations and immigration policy and things like that, and where this character might be, because there's some people who view him as purely a jingoistic sort of, like, it's all about like America, etc. And then there's
Truth, justice, and the American way.
Exactly, which is not even in the synopsis that we read, the human way.
I know. I noticed that.
And I think even in a lot of the more recent comics, they try to get away from the American way thing. But I would have to look at it again.
Was that more of like a wartime era?
It was more of a like 50s sort of thing. And it was a thing that persisted for decades. But like, but I think it was more of a like 50s McCarthyism sort of thing. And, without getting into a lot of how comics were changed by certain Fredric Werthams and his book. Like Superman probably wouldn't be doing big movies if it weren't for what is it? The Seduction of the Innocent. That's the name of the book. He probably would have faded. Most superheroes would have faded if not for Fredric Wertham.
Wait, what?
Okay, so a little bit of his comic history. So Fredric Wertham's, you know who I'm talking about, right? Seduction of the Innocent, the book. So there were congressional hearings about comic books.
I know
You know
about
that.
I know about the congressional hearings. I recognize Seduction of the Innocent. I recognize that name.
Yeah, I think that's the name of his book. So he wrote a book about it and about all the bad things for kids in comics. And comics at the time...
Okay, then I've heard about that book,
Yeah.
because I definitely know about the congressional hearings and how that's very relevant to a lot of my interests.
And if anybody listening or watching hasn't heard about it, like, and I'm probably getting some details wrong here, but essentially this man wrote this book, testified in front of Congress. They brought like comic publishers out in front. And the biggest comics at the time, though, were horror comics and crime comics. Superhero comics had largely fallen off in popularity. They just weren't that popular. Most of those characters were maybe being published as like reruns or reprints or something like that. If they were, Superman was still getting published regularly. Batman was. Marvel Comics, as we know it, did not really exist yet. What happened was the companies got together and said, before the government will restrict us, we will create the Comics Code Authority, which was a semi-independent body. They laid out what the rules were, and the other companies, National Comics, which is DC Comics, National Comics, I think is what they were called at the time. They may have changed their name to DC at the time, was one of these. What they did was the rules specifically killed all of the major publishers' comics because it made it incredibly restrictive to do anything horror related, anything crime related. It had to go through the Comics Code Authority. They had to approve it, and newsstands and anywhere else that would sell, there was a commitment not even to distribute anything that didn't have the Comics Code Authority sticker, like little logo on it saying this was reviewed and approved. And it killed EC Comics, which published Tales from the Crypt and a couple of other things. The show, if people not aware, the show Tales from the Crypt is largely adaptations of 1940s, 1950s horror comic books. It was killed by this. But like, because of that, then the bigger publishers went back to doing sort of adventure books and some romance books, and then superheroes started coming back. DC basically sort of reimagined a lot of their characters, the Flash, Green Lantern, Hawkman, various others, and started publishing them again. And then a few years later, Marvel comes, and then it's all superheroes. Superheroes were a much smaller genre of that medium until then, and the Comics Code Authority persisted. It didn't start dying off until around 2001 when Marvel decided to opt out of it and assign their own ratings to books. And so that was 40 plus years.
It's funny too, because that started the congressional hearings and then the like, oh, we will regulate our own industry. Not that long before the fall of the Hays Code and the start of the MPAA, which is a similar body that exists for related reasons. The MPAA seems a bit less directly restrictive that, but I mean, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole about the problems with the MPAA and the rating system, but probably anyone listening to this show is at least somewhat familiar with how that can end up being a form of censorship that restricts what sorts of films can get made as well and distributed and whatever. Although, like, technically you can make them, and it's just they won't, be approved by the Motion Pictures Association of America, and chain theaters won't carry it, and Blockbuster, if it still existed, wouldn't carry it, and etc. But your local art house could still carry it. But I guess your local independent bookstore could carry some indie comics also.
There are many indie comics out there. Just because I've already talked about the history of comics, indie comics there's a lot of great indie comics out there. I don't read nearly enough of them, but it's a great, thriving medium that's always kind of in danger because it's not quite as expensive as films to make, but it does take a lot of people to make it. So, but to get back to the films, I think that. I think like we've covered that's the kind of core connection between them is this immigrant story, which, again, persists through discussions about Superman. I've often thought of his story as, well, it is an immigrant story. It is in a lot of ways more of an assimilation, like very specifically like an assimilation story, like. I don't think we talked about it when we talked about Justice League, but I did write a little bit about or talk a little bit about in the paper that I did a million years ago and presented at the Pac Rim Literary Conference. That a big part of what is maybe special, maybe not special about Superman, I don't know, is that like the point isn't is he Superman or is he Clark Kent? Like, is he Superman pretending to be Clark Kent or is he Clark Kent pretending to be Superman? But in order to be a whole person, he's both. Like Clark Kent is him just sort of assimilating into day-to-day life, and Superman is him saying like, but I come from somewhere. Like I have a family history. I have like there is a culture and history that I come from that I am honoring by dressing up silly and flying.
Clark Kent is him pretending not to have powers so that he can assimilate into society. Superman, I mean, the question of assimilation with the Superman half of his persona, like in a sense, Superman has assimilated because he's not trying to dominate humanity. But at the same time, if humans had the kind of powers Superman does, a good chunk of them would be like, well, fuck the rest of humanity. I'm just going to be king now. So Superman is very like pro-human, but not very assimilationist to me at all. He's going on a different path than his parents. he's like, fuck you, mom and dad. I'm not going to do what you say. I'm going to forge my own path as a whatever they're called. Kryptonian. I don't know
Yeah.
He's going to do it his own way, but it's a very different way than a human way. And that almost, I was thinking about that at the very beginning when he gets in trouble for stopping the invasion that would have like cost all these lives. And I might be drawing too much because it's just where my brain went in the moment, but like the humans are like, we don't do things, or the United States at least, is we don't do things this way because that's our ally, and politics and the world of blah, blah, blah. You don't just get in front of a bulldozer and prevent it from running over somebody, except some people do, like Superman, or in the real world, Rachel Corrie. People do actually say, I'm going to throw myself in the gears of this stuff, most without the resources physically that Superman has to do that way more effectively than most of us can. But it's a pretty unusual thing for people to go against the systems of people and just act in the interest of protecting human life, right? Like, that's a heroic thing to do. Mm-hmm. And it's what Superman does. I feel like the movie gives people too much credit almost.
Well, I mean, what I would argue with that is that the difference between him and the average human being is that there are significantly less consequences for him if he does something like that, right? So the average person, like throwing yourself in front of a bulldozer, you're going to die. For him, the bulldozer is going to crunch around him, right? He has less potential consequences for doing that. I would say not to say that it's not heroic or whatever in the sense, but more that, like, I would argue and I think it comes up in the film, that he does it because he has the capacity to do this thing that other people can't do. And so I think many people find them, not enough people, not a lot of people, but find themselves in the position of, like, I am capable of doing this thing. Like, I have this opportunity here. I can do nothing. I can do something good. And I think that, many good people will do that. I think that is who that character is. And, the idea being that, to assimilate, he doesn't necessarily have to assimilate and be the average person or even the worst of us, but say, like, well, I see the best in, if I see the best in people, I want to be the best of people. And this is what I can do. And so, and I would say that, but also, like, I guess my point was also that, like, they're not separate halves, the Clark and Superman. Like, it's all him. I
agree. I just more meant, like, the half, and it's not really half, but the portion of the time when he is, I am Superman right now, and the portion of the time when he is presenting as Clark Kent, right? Mm-hmm. Like, there are times where he is very clearly presenting as one or the other. It's a binary thing. He himself internally, I don't think it's like a split personality bullshit thing, or even like, this is when I can get in touch with this side of myself. Like, yeah, when you said that that's the thing that people talk about, I think that's weird. I think it's weird that people would think one or the other was the true one. I think that's weird.
It's a weird conversation that comes up in comic nerd circles, because it's like, it's especially when we talk about, like, Superman and Batman, because there's a lot of talk about, like, Batman. Well, Batman's the real him, and then Bruce Wayne is just like a fake persona that he puts on to go out there. And it's even a thing that's in some of the writing or in some of the way that the character's depicted. So then they map that onto Superman. And I've had these conversations before, and I think over time I'm kind of more on the side of, like, no, that's the whole person people have. It's like, it's like you, when you go to work, you when you stay at home, you when you go out, like those are all still you, even though, we've all got to do things where, you got to pretend that you don't swear quite as much when you're in certain situations, maybe. But that's just like presenting, like it's still you. Those are all still you. It's just like there's facets of ourselves. We are multifaceted, all of us.
I completely agree. What you were saying though, it made me think. Not that I'm not trying to play devil's advocate because I don't disagree with anything you're saying. Just thinking a bit about Superman and the question of is he the best of humanity? How does that interface with the questions of assimilation? I think, and how is he? And I think the thing I'm pointing to, which is that his goodness feels very. It just doesn't feel very human to me right now. Not because humans can't be good, but because I don't think that that's a defining feature of humanity at all. I think about I really like the conversation he has with Lois, where she's like, I question everything. Mm-hmm. Look at everybody like they're the most beautiful thing you've ever seen in your life, and you immediately like assume the best of them. And I like that conversation, both because it felt like, yeah, I can really see why these two people would work as a couple and complete each other in a way, because they each have something the other needs, so they balance each other.
Yeah.
Like, Lois has a lot of skills and reflexes as a reporter that Clark does not have.
No.
Clark is, without getting into all the many, many ethical issues with the way reporting is happening at the Daily Planet, like, he's an innocent in a lot of ways that she is not, right? Like, but that can be helpful because she helps him be realistic and he helps her be less cynical. Right. Yeah. And that's beautiful and that's great. And
I think this movie really handled that very well. Like I've seen some people kind of criticize somehow they're handled in the movie. Like they don't get a ton of screen time for that, but it's enough. There's a lot of for me, like a good Superman story has to actually like you can't have a good Superman story without the Daily Planet staff. Like you have to have at minimum at least a minor appearance by Perry White. You have to have Lois as a major character in the story somehow. Like sometimes you can have him go off and do something else, but there still has to be something there because of what you were talking about. And you also have to have things like Jimmy and everything like that. Because, and it's a conversation I've had with people before. They're like, I'm not interested in Superman because like he can do anything. So like, what's the challenge to him? And it's like this Superman doesn't always have to be like the one who's doing everything. In fact, like that's one of the things that this movie did very well is it had so much of the Daily Planet staff that have existed. They've even been in other movies. Like some of these characters have even shown up in. I have not seen Batman versus Superman, but Jimmy Olsen is apparently in that movie, and they kill him at the beginning of the movie. He's a photographer somewhere in Africa or something like that. I'm just like, that's supposed to be Jimmy Olsen, and I'm like, that's not how you do that, because like.
Yeah, it is if you're gonna make it real.
Yeah.
Like when it really happened.
But like that whole group is all because they give context to his world, because, even just like in little ways here and there, in little ways in how they exist in the world, how Superman exists in the world. It also gives you context for like, well, there's Superman and he can save everybody, but who's he saving? Here are people you can get to know and what they're doing. And they're also, especially in this movie, love that they are actively taking part in, Superman stops the physical thing that Lex Luthor is doing, but they're the ones who get him, in trouble essentially with the government, because they're like, here is what he did. I also love the fact that in this version, in this movie, Superman is the damsel in distress, and Lois is coming to help him with the help of Mr. Terrific. It builds out the world in a way where I think as Superman movies go, it gives him a context where he does have a challenge, and the challenges are not necessarily like what can he physically do, because he can physically do anything. He could just take over the world. The challenge is that he's a good person and he does not want to do that. He just wants to make the world a better place, and that's harder than taking things over, right? Because you have to get people to buy into that, which is the thing that he struggles with. I think that scene, I've seen some people have issues here and there, have issues with the scene between him and Lois. I'm like, that is an excellent scene when they're arguing about what he did, because it shows it's a great thing about their characters. It's a great thing about
which scene?
The scene where she's interviewing Superman, and they start arguing, and he's like, people were going to die, and she's coming to it from this pragmatic standpoint.
She's like, you don't know that. Yeah, you can. Seems likely, but you don't know that.
Exactly, and it's true. And she makes some. The thing is neither of them is entirely wrong in that scene. She's right in that he didn't know, and there's a potential problem with somebody like him going in and deciding things like that. And he's absolutely right in that he needed to intervene because people were going to die.
She's right as a reporter. He's maybe right from a more purely moral stance. Yeah,
absolutely.
Legally is a third matter.
That's
altogether.
A whole other thing.
That's a whole other matter.
But we should probably move on to what the rest of the world thought, because I could ramble forever. But do you want to share what Pauline Kael had to say about The Godfather?
Yeah, let me talk about what Pauline Kael had to say about The Godfather, which I will say, according to Metacritic, has a score of 100.
100.
Which I think is the highest Metacritic score we've had so far.
Yes. I mean, this is also, like, since we started doing Metacritic, like, this is also the only one that's, like, a classic, right? So.
I mean, West Side Story.
Fair, yeah, you're right.
And I think that wasn't 100; it was close.
No, it was close, but I don't think it was 100.
Anyway, it has 100, which makes sense. And Pauline Kael in The New Yorker wrote that in The Godfather, we see organized crime as an obscene, symbolic extension of free enterprise and government policy, an extension of the worst in America, its feudal ruthlessness. Organized crime is not a rejection of Americanism. It's what we fear Americanism to be. It's our nightmare of the American system. I would go one further and say that organized crime, like we see in The Godfather, is actually not even the worst of what we can see in the American system. I would say that it is an extension of Americanism. I would not even say of the worst of it.
No, I think, we've seen worse.
It's free enterprise.
Yeah.
In the same, and it's just like the relationship between organized crime and the police is different from the relationship between quote unquote legitimate business and police, but at the end of the day, the role of police is always going to be to protect capital, right? Is going to be to protect property. Not all property, mind you. Not the property of, say, I don't know, a houseless person in LA. Their property doesn't actually belong to them because they don't have enough money to have rights.
Exactly.
Because that's how the police work in this country. And I'm thinking about things like chattel slavery. That's worse than organized crime.
Yeah.
It is worse, in my opinion, to enslave people than and commit all kinds of other additional violence than just roughing people up sometimes when they don't do what you want. I'm not saying that's okay. And murdering people. Like, I'm not saying organized crime is okay. I'm just saying it gets worse.
I think, and I'm not going to say that this is the point you're making, but I think it may be close, is that, like, organized crime is just, it's that drug commercial of, I learned it from watching you. Because, everything that organized crime does on some level is just what, like, the legit businesses or
exactly.
like,
yes.
I will never stop referring to insurance as extortion. Like,
it is.
It's absolutely extortion. It's absolutely like, nice body there. Shame if something should happen to it. Like that's what health insurance is. Nice teeth there. Shame that are somehow not part of the rest of your health. Other eyes and teeth are not part of the rest of your body, but they have to be separately insured. But whatever.
You know how many teeth Medicaid thinks you need?
5
before they'll pay to, like, do anything other than just pull a tooth if there's something wrong with it, basically.
Is it 5?
4.
4. I mean,
you got 4 teeth, you can chew. You
wait,
got 4 teeth, quit complaining.
What if you only got 4 teeth on the
Tommy
bottom?
3 teeth over there.
What if they're only on the bottom?
I don't know, man.
But your point being, of course, the correct. I think that, like, organized crime is probably not the worst of it. It is just a reflection of, what our government, what our society already allows. It's just people who aren't doing it within those approved systems for it.
And the thing is, the people who do it in those approved systems will almost always reconfigure themselves to include those people.
Mm-hmm.
If you color outside the lines are going to move to continue. Everyone should go see Julio Torres's Color Theories in the East Village. I'm forgetting the name of the theater, but it's something like the East Village Theater. He has a bit in Color Theories about systems of power and how when the people it benefits do things that go against their rules, they'll just change the rules to accommodate them. And I mean, we have a great example of this happening every single day right now with the current administration we have. But anyway, that's what Pauline Kael has to say. And I agree with her that organized crime is not a rejection of Americanism. I just say it's a part of the American system. I wouldn't say it's what we fear Americanism to. I mean, sure, I guess it's what a lot of New Yorkers maybe fear Americanism to be. And I'm here to tell those 1972 New Yorker readers that their fears were correct.
Yeah.
But, like, just not bad enough. It's even worse.
It just gets worse. Speaking of things that get worse, here, let me tell you what the half-star review I found from Letterboxd of.
Tell me, please.
The Godfather.
I love to know what people on Letterboxd have to say.
So we pull a fun half-star and a fun 5-star review for each film from Letterboxd because they're fun. Usually recent ones because I'm lazy. So this half-star says, from Mikey S., if I could give this a -5 out of 5, I would. Hated every bit of it. Bored me to tears. Nothing fun or interesting about it. Fell asleep 3 separate times and woke up to it barely halfway finished. Although it makes a good white noise / ASMR for when I need something in the background. The half-star is for Al Pacino being a cutie pie. Fair point, Mikey. He was
a cutie pie. The first thing I said, I was like, he is so young.
Yes.
He was a baby.
He didn't start melting yet.
And he was acting.
Like, I feel
he was acting.
We had like a solid,
not overacting.
20 years of him actually trying, and
he wasn't chewing any scenery. He wasn't hamming it up. He wasn't being like, look at me and the crazy ticks I can do.
Yeah, we had what, like the late 60s, I want to say it was like 68 through maybe the late 80s, and he was actually doing stuff.
Well, no.
I can't remember the stuff he was
maybe.
in the late 80s. Oh, like...
It was right around the turn of the 90s that stuff got bad.
Yeah, you know, Scarface, he's really going over the top.
Scarface, he's going over the top, but
it's an over-the-top movie.
I mean, Scarface is a ridiculous fucking movie. Remember when people thought Oliver Stone was like a serious filmmaker, and then they stopped thinking that?
Isn't that Brian De Palma?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the movie.
Screenplay by Oliver Stone.
Yeah, because that's the movie that I was like, oh, I don't think I like Brian De Palma, and then I look at what other things Brian De Palma's done. I'm like, yeah, I do.
That's
it's
one
just
of my
that
least
movie
favorite.
Yeah, it's one of those movies where the fans kind of made me go like, nah, this isn't fun to watch anymore.
The fans are a mess, but I mean, I enjoy Scarface. I can watch it maybe once every 15 years and I'm good. But it's a ridiculous movie, and it actually makes a lot more sense for De Palma to direct it than Oliver Stone, because Oliver Stone is less fun than Brian De Palma.
Do you want to share the 5-star review for The Godfather?
Yeah, but first I want to just kind of shout out to Mikey S, because like I'm sure they're in part being like, oh, I'm going to give a half star to the movie everyone gives 5 stars to. But a lot of this I actually believe, and so I respect it.
Yeah.
Like if it was someone just being like, I fell asleep, and they were lying. But to be fair, if you're not in the mood for it, or like it's not clicking for you or whatever reasons, I can absolutely see The Godfather being a devastatingly boring movie that you just fell asleep to.
And that was actually a lot of the half stars where I fell asleep. This was super boring. There was a lot of them where it was just, this was super boring. Like
they were probably expecting Scarface.
Yeah, they were expecting a kind of different kind of movie.
And the movie, one of the things that's so great about The Godfather is like the first 30 minutes almost are just this goddamn wedding. And you're just like getting...
It's a long part of the movie.
It's not boring though, not to me. No. I was thinking though, I'm like, if this were today, they'd be telling him to edit this down, and I'm so glad he didn't, because you get so much in such a like nice, lived in, natural feeling, subtle way. It's awesome. Anyway, a 5-star review from Sonia on Letterboxd said, after listening to everyone always saying that The Godfather is one of, if not the greatest film of all time, I had high expectations from this film. Needless to say, those expectations were met and exceeded. Fair.
Yeah.
Like it's
definitely
it's a really good film. Like I will say there's some things about it that are funny. I think it's very funny that Al Pacino's secret Italy wife gets naked before she says anything. And we don't hear her speak until the scene where she dies.
No, she speaks before that, but it's pretty close.
Does she?
Yes.
I don't think so. When? I literally...
They speak. They're talking when he's showing her how to drive, like when they're setting up how she's
going. He dies.
No, she doesn't die yet. She dies late, like a little later. She dies like 1 or 2 scenes later.
She's in the car when she dies. The car blows up.
I know, but they're in the car before that.
I thought it was.
He shows her how to drive, and that's setting up for how she's going to die. They're talking in that scene, and then some other stuff happens. I think it cuts to New York, and because at that point, like he's showing her how to drive, because it's like, we're gonna live here, it's gonna be fine. And then when they're gonna be going to America, she's so excited about it that she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna drive us." So she's gotten in the car, and then the car explodes.
Okay, so she dies in the scene before the scene where she dies after she gets naked, and
yes, you're not wrong, but I'm just saying.
I love The Godfather. It's a classic movie. It is a movie that there are plenty of feminist comments.
Oh yeah,
that could be made. And I don't just mean the dumb kind where people think that depicting something means you're in favor of it.
Yeah.
I mean, things like, we could have gotten more from Diane Keaton's perspective. We really could have.
She's barely a character in the movie.
And she's a character more than like any other woman in it is.
Yeah, like none of the women really exist except to be there as props or set dressing or whatever. Like,
I'm fine with it being a story about these men. Like, we just talked about Fight Club, and that is mostly a story about male characters, and that's fine. I'm not like, you should have made one of them be a lady. Like, I'm not.
No.
But it's not about how many characters are of what gender, but it is about the fact that the film is not interested in the interiority of any of the female characters.
No, you're gonna have, if you're gonna have them, like, at least make them an actual whole character.
And I have to say, I kind of give Diane Keaton a lot of credit, because her character comes across as a full person to me, and I don't really think it's in the writing.
No, she does a very good job with the.
She does really good.
Yeah,
she does good.
Yeah, I mean, I think she had got a lot of practice in the 60s and the 70s there with the directors that she was working with, and like, oh, I'm just sort of a sketch of a person. Let me fill that out. Not commenting about Woody Allen at all. But let's talk about the. Let me share with you what David Sims had to say about Superman. So Superman got a 68, generally favorable on Metacritic, which seems fair to me. Like, it's not going to be beloved. I think it's a good movie. I don't think it's a great movie, but it's definitely something that I loved. But 68 seems fine. I might want to see it higher, but it's good. Oops, my mic. So David Sims said, contemporary audiences may also see the story of Superman, an alien adopted by Kansas farmers who raised him to use his powers for unambiguous good, as corny. So the director builds our modern discomfort with sincerity into his interpretation. So Sims was mostly talking in the, Sims was mostly talking in the review about the corniness of the character in this, and the sort of silliness with how he's, it embraces a lot of silly elements of the character, which is something that I love, because I think that's, it's fun. But I do think that one of the things that when I heard about James Gunn was going to be doing this, that made me excited is exactly what we ended up getting, which he's willing to be silly, and even with silly characters, he tends to be sincere in their emotions. Like, they're silly, but like he made me feel a lot for a cartoon raccoon. Like he made me feel bad for that cartoon raccoon and his relationships to people and difficulties with relationships to, like, his friends in the second and the third Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and that was a weird experience. Like, he's with the Peacemaker series, he's very much about, like, yes, I can be silly, yes, I can embrace big colorful things, and also, like, these characters are human and they're imperfect, and they are the whole speech that Superman does at the end of the movie about being imperfect and being human, about just trying every day, I think is fundamental in just what James Gunn approaches these things as. So I was very excited about that, and I think that came through a lot. I think there's a lot of sincerity there. I don't know if you saw it all, but there's actually a behind the scenes clip about that speech where he and David Corensett are trying to he wants the actor wants to play it a certain way, James Gunn wants him to play it a different way, and they actually like get into a rather loud discussion on set about like how are we supposed to do this and trying to understand it. And there's a really good like, you know, anybody who wants to like, if you want to direct film, like it's a really great example of an actor and a director in the moment finding their understanding of this is why the character is approaching this moment like this. This is where they are emotionally in the scene. And it's, you know, it's in a lot of ways like this, a scene that it's one of the scenes that makes the movie work is because he's, you know, he's articulating who he is and why he does what he does and why it matters to him. And just to see that there's this exchange between them where they were approaching it differently and they come to this understanding. It's a nice little behind the scenes bit. I don't know if
where can we find that?
I will have to look it up. I saw it on social media, like people were talking about it, and then it would pop up on social media. So I'll see if I can
find it and put it in the show notes.
Yeah. It's an interesting little clip. I should have probably grabbed it beforehand.
Should I share what Letterboxd users thought of Superman?
Yeah. What did the half star say?
My Superman is Henry Cavill, and my director is Zack Snyder. IDK, how this even qualifies to be a Superman movie. Vinny 7H.
Yeah. That was a lot of the half stars. A lot of the half stars were, I mean, there were some that were the gag from the movie, hashtag super shit. But like a lot of them were just like, this is terrible, or Henry Cavill got robbed and stuff like that.
No, he didn't.
No, he got to do 3 movies, make a bunch of money.
Did he only do 3?
4 movies maybe. Oh, so what did he do? He did Man of Steel. He did Batman versus Superman.
He did both Justice Leagues.
Both Justice Leagues. Let's count them as 2. And I guess he did also make a brief appearance in Black Adam at the end. When Dwayne The Rock Johnson was like, I'm gonna take over, and didn't.
You know, I forgot that movie existed. I liked it that way.
And you should. It was bad. It was bad. Like, it was just bad.
What do the 5-star reviews say?
So the 5-star review says, and this is a long chunk, so what makes Superman a hero, before watching the movie, I would have said his superhuman strength, but it was more so the choice to save each and every single life, no matter how minuscule it may seem, given how perilous the situations were that made Superman a hero to me. It was a valuable lesson that moved me, especially with the current world events. The willingness to fight and the resilience shown, even when you are the only one fighting for a moral cause in the face of a profit-driven, greedy, and apathetic world. A much-needed movie by Zero Sheepy Zero.
I agree with that. I like what Zero Sheepy Zero says. I think it's a good message. I don't know, man. I think it's a good message. I wonder how many people are hearing it and how they're hearing it and what they're...
It's a lot of the conversation that I saw about the movie, you know, my social media feed, my TikTok feed, partly because of my own inclinations toward it, I think. But I think probably most telling is the people who were criticizing it around these topics, who felt...
And telling on themselves.
Yeah, exactly. The people who were telling on themselves, the people who felt like they were being depicted as the bad guys. It's like, okay, the message is getting across because you weren't explicitly, but you are.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, like I keep saying, you know, it's not about Palestine, it's not about Ukraine, but it also is about Palestine and Ukraine and any other situation. You know, there are ways in which various real world situations that people have been drawing parallels to. One fits better than the other in some ways, another will fit better in other ways. None of them perfectly work out. I would bet money that this is not, quote unquote, supposed to be any two actual countries or bodies specifically and not others. It's not about that. It's about the power dynamics. It's about if you've got a country and they're supposedly our ally, that means they're going to be able to get away with some shit probably. And what happens when you throw yourself in the gears of that, right? Like, but it's, and in that respect, it's kind of like Israel and Palestine, but there are other respects in which it's a lot more like Ukraine and Russia. And there are other ways in which you could compare it to, I think, any conflict where there's such a great imbalance of power, right? And anytime there's an invasion, for example, and someone's trying to take someone else's land, we could say.
Exactly. And I think that that's really a lot more where this works, is that it is vague, but it applies in these places. And again, this is the sort of thing that I want from a Superman movie. It's just a movie that makes people like go like, oh, like I had fun watching it, but also like there's like a lesson in there about like maybe don't be a shitty person.
I think we're only recovering, thanks to younger people, from a lot of the damage that was done to the culture by my generation, Generation X, which seemed to think it was really rebellious and cool to be apathetic at times. Not everyone, not me, not the various subcultures I was involved in, but there was this like dominant idea out there of that. And irony became this dominant mode of communication around Y2K in a way where I was like, people literally don't know if they are serious or joking about what they're saying anymore.
Yeah.
And it was like the South Parkification where like it's dumb to care and nothing really matters. And we got what seemed like more modern, superhero stuff around that time too. And I feel like, I mean, it was a bad time for superhero movies. They weren't making money. The ones I can think of are like, I mean, well, I guess the Spider-Men were, but like, there was like Catwoman and Elektra.
Yeah, the early 2000s. Yeah, it was so one of the things, and it's related to that, and we talked about this a little bit, because one of the things that I do like about what is happening with this movie is I've seen a lot of people asking for, on social media, asking for recommendations for, this made me want to go read not just Superman stories, but other comics. Like, I'm interested now. Like, this seems like a fun world. And that was exciting to me because I'm like, yes, come and join in. And there's a lot of fun stuff. It's also like where you draw from, and where a lot of people were drawing from in the 2000s, where a lot of people were drawing from up until very recently, were the postmodern deconstructions of superheroes. And I will just say, just before I have it up on screen, our Letterboxds are at Uncle Sean and at Nicole Witt. We've highlighted people's Letterboxds and what they had to say. Come and just like leave comments on ours that say that we suck or something like that, because we're not above that. But one of the things that just to kind of talk briefly about where these references are coming from. A lot of people were going to Watchmen, we're going to The Dark Knight Returns, we're going to these late 80s comics that were breaking down the genre, which are great works in the genre. I'm not criticizing them.
I'm a fan of Watchmen.
I criticize the way that people have approached them, because they are not an entry point, they are an end point. They're a thing where it's like, when you are familiar with the genre and the genre conventions, it's super, super meaningful. When you're not, suddenly that's your context for the genre. And that was what the problem became. Those became so popular. What I love about this movie and what it's saying and what it's setting up is Gunn is drawing from the same era, but he's drawing from the not from the critical stuff, but he's drawing from the mainstream stuff. The version of the Justice League, the Justice Gang that he's using, is the late 80s Giffen DeMatteis and its name's not Nolan. It's Kevin Nolan, I think. Like the fun Justice League. which was this goofball Green Lantern of Guy Gardner, who was more of an asshole.
In Peacemaker.
Exactly. The same one's in Peacemaker.
If you're watching Peacemaker.
Exactly. He's bringing in these characters that are flawed and fun. The Maxwell Lord being like the financier behind it. And he's saying like, we can have fun with this. This is a fun, vibrant, multicolored world where these are people, but that doesn't mean that they're dark and sad and like we don't have to do that. Like they can be flawed people and it can be fun. And then later you can do I think I would argue that film superheroes didn't earn a Watchmen movie because we didn't have enough of the genre at that scope for a deconstructionist approach to it to have any kind of like real meaning other than just I don't know.
It would make more sense to do now, honestly, after superhero films became like the dominant blockbuster.
Yeah.
Which they weren't when the Watchmen movie came out and hadn't been,
No.
But now with like the dominance of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and all that, in theory, this could be a moment where, but you know what I'd rather have than a movie of Watchmen is like something new that's dealing with this moment in the culture. Because like, I don't know, man, one thing I was thinking while watching this Superman movie, which I very much enjoyed, and I'm not trying to say adults should not enjoy superhero movies. I do. I enjoy all sorts of shit that's not exactly for me. But it's kind of like the thing when adults... God, I'm probably stepping into something that's more controversial than I realize because I'm not on social media anymore. But like, you know how some adults, including myself, read YA? I have a YA book right here, right now.
Lots of adults do, yeah.
It's called The World is Worth Saving by Kyle Lukoff. It's about a trans kid who makes a golem. So
cool.
That's cool, and I'm reading it. It's YA. I think it's totally fine for me to be reading it. I'm getting stuff out of it. I have no embarrassment or shame about it. It's not for me.
Exactly.
It's a YA book. I'm not saying that superhero movies are for kids in as direct a way. They're for everyone. But I think there are some adults who are looking to these movies for more than they should be looking to these movies for. I'm not speaking about like the depth of anyone's passion or enjoyment or anything like that. There's plenty of stuff, I am obsessed with that probably has way less going on for it thematically for adults than like this Superman movie, for example. But I think a lot of adults need to watch the movies for adults and like read some books for adults, because like watching this movie, part of what I was struck with was like this movie has a kind of moral clarity that I really appreciated because I feel like it's rare. And it's a moral clarity, though, that it's very much like, this is a great way for children to get an age-appropriate introduction to a lot of complicated stuff. But it's not delving into that stuff at like a deep adult level, which is fine. It's a Superman movie. It's a popcorn movie. Not a criticism of the movie, and I'm also taking pains to say it's not a like adults really shouldn't be watching this. I'm not saying that.
And I definitely don't think you are. I hope nobody else thinks you are. And I agree with you. Like I try to approach these like one of the reasons why I'm not honestly that critical of most of these movies is because I'm like, I'm here to have fun. I'm not here to like when I want to watch like something like really thoughtful or that's going to challenge me, these are not what I'm looking for. They're not the sorts of thing. But I also, fully acknowledge that that is also not to dismiss when people get a lot out of any of these popcorn movies, any of these young things that are, from young adult works or something like that. Like, my stance on art is that, the creation of art is a very personal thing. When I create a film, when you create a film, whatever part of the process we're part of, like, that our contribution to that part of the process is extremely personal, is very much like an outgrowth of every part of our lives before that, no matter how much we are like, oh, I'm just getting paid to do this one. Somebody's paying me to do the script. The things that you choose to do or not do when you do it, like, it all comes from everything, even the things you're not thinking about. We've talked a few times about sometimes we don't know what the thing that we're making is about until we finished it and go like, oh, that's the thing. And I think that is important. And also why AI can't make art.
I was thinking the same thing as you were saying that.
But
what's the difference between art and AI?
Yeah, but then the consumption of art, or the viewing of art, the reading, the listening, is also extremely personal. And one of the reasons why I think, I try not to judge, when people are like, this is meaningful to me.
Sure.
I try not to, for many things that, I'm like, it's a little, there's stuff associated with that's pretty fucked up. Well, I'm like, but that has meaning to you for so many things that have actually nothing to do with the artist, maybe even nothing to do with the art is about. It's such a personal relationship, that, it's hard to get to really get more into.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think the only place judgment comes in is, I think our culture has been infantilized, and we have a lot of adult babies walking around.
There's a fair amount of that, and I mean, we could spend another hour and a half talking just about that. But
I think part of what's blowing my mind is Superman. I think it's a very good Superman movie for whatever it's worth coming from me. I think it's a very good superhero movie. I know more about superhero movies more broadly than Superman movies specifically. I think it has a moral clarity that I appreciated, and I think it has like some good entry points for children into some thorny issues. Where I take exception is Superman seems to be challenging some adults. That's real bleak. That we have people being like, this Superman movie is too complex for adults, and literally all they can say is like, it's woke, even though we won't even go there. We both know, hopefully anybody listening to this knows that, even I, who am not a Superman scholar, I know that the ways in which Superman was quote unquote woke in this movie are historic parts of the character. That's not a change.
No, it's not. Going back to the beginning. So
if this version of Superman is too woke for you, I'm sorry, but Superman is too woke for you. Go watch Brightburn or whatever. I don't know. Go
also produced by James Gunn.
Fantasies.
So
I haven't seen it, but
it's not good. I
did like the way they handled evil Superman in this movie, where there's briefly the clone.
Yes, I did. I do appreciate that, and that it was in too many movies that would have been a huge plot point of like, who is that? What are we gonna do? It's just kind of a like it's not enough of a story. And again, one of the things I appreciate about James Gunn is he's just like, yeah, that's not really the story or an interesting enough story. We're using it. It has good plot function. There is also ways that can be used for future stories that are set up in this, but they never have to do it. That's the other thing that I appreciate about this. There's only one movie that's set up by this, and that's the one that was actually completed production like as soon as it was like a week before the movie Superman was released, like they had already shot the movie out. So there was no like, oh, we set up something we're not doing. And that's Supergirl at the end. I'm excited for that movie because the specific source material for that movie is really good. And a lot about, it's a, you know, if the movie goes where the book that it's based on goes, it's a lot about grief. And also a fun sort of space adventure. But we should probably wrap up. I think
it's that time.
I could talk about Superman forever.
I could too. I could talk about The Godfather for a long time.
We could go into
Who
a
knew?
lot more about The Godfather.
Good film. A lot to say.
Yeah. So
How about that score?
Exactly. We'll be back. I think we're going to do something special for October for Halloween for some spooky. We like spooky stuff. We like spooky stuff. That's kind of part of our whole brand. So keep an eye out here. The live will be up, and you can always come to the Patreon and see stuff. We have some fresh stuff coming up on the Patreon soon. Some fresh video content. I have some stuff to upload. Nicole is uploading some stuff. It's
some new and exciting.
New and exciting, fun, different stuff.
Fun, different.
Yeah.
Possibly
Anyway,
embarrassing, possibly incriminating.
I just said fun, didn't I?
It's redundant. My bad.
Exactly. So thank you for joining us, everybody.
Thank you for joining us, and we will catch you next time. That's our cool sign off now.
Cool. Bye.
Cool. Bye.
The Celluloid Mirror is a production of 4 Mile Circus and is hosted by Sean Mannion and Nicole Solomon. Learn more at 4milecircus.com. To keep up with the next episode, make sure to subscribe and click that button to get reminders. You can also join our Patreon at patreon.com/4milecircus. All the links are below. Our opening and closing music is Twisted by Kevin MacLeod. You can find his music at incompetech.com.
I ended up in that hall of mirrors. There was another girl. She looked like me. Exactly like me.
Can you come with me, Rejoice?
That'll do, baby. What happens when the story dies? The evil is set free.
I have to return some videotapes.